Welcome back to the Unbounded podcast, where we explore what it really takes to break through limitations, expand possibility, and live with purpose. I'm your host, Todd Simmons, and today's episode, we're going to dive deep. We're going to dive real deep. When I decided to do this podcast, this guest was number one on my list, actually. This podcast is titled The Real Work is Inner Work. Strategy goals and how do you make plans matter. Today's guest, he's known in the community, social media, everywhere as the Hood Motivator, which we'll talk about, a mindset coach, motivational creator, and someone who helps people unlock their potential at the intersection of resilience, identity, and self-belief. Hey, we want to welcome to the show. What's going on, Mr. McIntyre? Mr. Jay
How you
McIntyre.
doing?
We are welcoming him to the show, Army vet. We're going to get into all his formers, currents. But hey, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me to the show. I appreciate you. I have been watching you a long time on LinkedIn and looking up to what you have been doing. And you're a trendsetter and been following right along. And then the opportunity offered for me to hop on this podcast, and I took it. Whatever time, whatever you needed, I stopped everything because I want to have this conversation with you. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it, Jay. It's so crazy. COVID has done so much to us. I'm a COVID retiree, first of all, from the military. For the audience out there, I was in the Air Force and I retired from the military in COVID in 2020. And, coming out of a
Mm,
structured environment and moving to a new city here. I live in the DC area. And I tell people COVID was as horrible as it was good for me restructuring my life because most of the connections I made were virtual when I retired. And
yeah.
for the first 18 months,
Mm,
most of the people I met that I still have connections with were people I didn't even meet in person. And people like you a couple of years ago when I came across you, you're just one of those people like, I just popped in my mind. I never met you. I never met you in person.
right.
Or you know what? We kind of passed each other at the MIT conference last year.
Yes,
We
yes,
actually didn't
yes.
get a chance to actually sit down and talk. So yeah, so I appreciate you coming to the show, man. And for those of you who are at this point have already heard probably the first episode, we're not doing 142 episodes. The point of this podcast is real conversations with real people living that unbounded life. And we'll tell you what that unbounded, limitless life, those people that I see out there that, man, are just getting after it in their own way. They're not looking in the mirror and seeing a shadow of anyone else. They're not worrying about,
Right.
left and right, who's worried about what they're doing. They are committed to the cause that wakes them up every morning, purpose driven lives, limitless. And you know what? That life typically, what you will hear, comes with a story. That life always comes with a story. Through a lot of heartache, most of these folks that we're going to be talking to has risen to some new heights and continue to rise. So Jay, we'll just get right into it, man. Tell the folks just a little bit, about you before we get into some deep kind of what has brought you here now in all the movement that you're doing all over.
Thank you. I'm JayR McIntyre from California. Born and raised, mother died of AIDS. Grew up in a pretty horrible environment, but was able to persevere. Father's a minister. Both grandfathers were ministers. After the towers fell, I went straight into the army, jail, and then to the army. When I went into the army, did 3 combat deployments to Iraq, Bronze Star, in the combat, and saw a lot of my friends, take their own lives, and saw a lot of my friends, die in combat. I came out the military struggling with my mental health, PTSD, TBI, and I got help. I wanted to do inpatient, 77 days
Wow.
inpatient, and tried to get the help. Ayahuasca, I did Reiki, I did Bufo, I did a lot of things to try to get the help. And then I started entrepreneurship, which was another scary battle. I went into entrepreneurship thinking that, okay, this is it. I put my all into it, thinking everybody was going to be on board, but not know a good heart don't pay
Yeah.
bills. So that's my next book that's coming out. But I put a lot of that stuff in there, and I ended up failing. My company fell flat on its face. I had to file for bankruptcy, had to let go of my brick and mortar and just face the facts. And God was like, "You went a long way, but you went the wrong way." So I started talking to myself and believing in myself again. And fast forward 2024. So I filed for bankruptcy in 2022. 2024, I woke up and I was top 50 motivational speakers in the world because I believed in myself. I took that as healing. I started to do the inner child work, started to speak life into myself. And when I started doing it, it started to get the tractions of everybody on social media. Fast forward now, I'm a life coach, motivational speaker. And this year I graduated with my doctorate in business.
I love it, man. You can tell you got that thing right down packed. You got that thing down. So I know you've been out here doing the grinding. I will tell you. I'm just going to start off with I was doing a guest list, right? I got a 24 and 29-year-old daughter, and I was doing a guest list, and they live up in Birmingham, Alabama. Shout out Roll Tide, Alabama. I was looking in and I was showing them some of the people I wanted to, kind of go after and talk to, just all walks of life. I mean, Andrea, she lives out in Iowa, a great friend, two NFL players, former NFL guys that are friends of mine. You just people I know their stories a little bit. Like I'm just not cold turkey. And the one question I'll start with, which I'm guarantee you get, but I've answered it for you 4 or 5 times, but I've never heard you tell me. But I think I understand. Why do you go by the moniker the Hood Motivator?
First of all, I'm paying homage to where I came from. I think society paints a bad picture of how the hood is supposed
Yeah.
to be, and not knowing there's a lot of superheroes that come from inner cities. I happen to be one, and I didn't ask to be born in Long Beach, California, Compton, Los Angeles, to a mother that was dying of AIDS, crack cocaine on Skid Row. I didn't ask to be born there, but guess what? I should be embarrassed to tell people in the military that I was from
Mm.
the cities because how projected from the society on the news, the ghetto and gang banging and drugs and all that good stuff. But when I started to heal, that was one of my superpowers was to say, hey, you are the hood motivator. Not only that you're the elephant in the room. Let them judge you by your name. But when they peel that onion back, they're going like, wow, he not only he was in the military, he did 3 combat tours, he got a Bronze Star, he got a master's degree, project management, he graduated with his doctorate. Oh man, I shouldn't have judged him. Yeah, you shouldn't. I just put that title there to let people know I still want to, and I always wear the Long Beach hat because I pay homage to where I come from.
Man, I tell you what, I've answered that for you that way. And we've
There you
never
go.
met. And the only reason I've answered that because I'm sure you have been out here and you've had some judgment over that name, right? And I go, no, I know exactly what this brother's doing. I know exactly what JR is trying to do. I know what he's doing because it's caught my attention, and I know it catches other people's attention. I was the same way. I used to be ashamed of my past. I used to be ashamed of being a high school dropout, not understanding, not learning how to read. I went through my own resilience issues quite a few times. I tried to attempt suicide twice when I was 19 years old in the military. And that was all from shame. I was all from not being smarter than everybody else, failing, tests and actually listening to the words out of people's mouth when they called me stupid. I was like, man, maybe I am stupid, right? Because that's the trauma that I was raised with when people called me that when I failed the fourth grade or I failed the ninth grade and people were like, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid. I so appreciate you answering that, man. And I knew exactly that that was going to be the way that you answered it because you're right. There's a stigma. I don't care if you did not say hood motivator or you did not use the word hood. You can have a stigma if you just wear that blue cap and say I'm from California. It could be like, oh, you're wearing blue, you're from
Like,
California, were you in a so there's so many stereotypes that has to be. And I love that you wear them on your sleeve because I do the same thing. I show up and tell people all the time, small town kid, Hardyville, South Carolina, I got to learn this ability. And I say, you know what? It's probably easier for you to read than it is for me. But what all that means for me is when you get up at 5 and I get up at 5, you may be done at 6 and I may be done at 8. But guess what? I'm gonna get up every day. You may get up 2 days a week. I'm getting up 7 days a week. That's where I have won every day in this race. And I learned those lessons in my early 20s after so much resilience issues when my first book I wrote is actually titled after the mantra that I developed when I was 25 years old. Why not me?
ooh,
When
why
I
not?
when I realized that there was nothing on this earth that wasn't for me, it was powerful, man. And I think that's what you're showing people. So tell us a little bit about your work, man. I've seen you are in high schools. I've seen you in elementary schools. I've seen you in Fortune 500 companies. I'm like, this brother got no genre he ain't trying to conquer. I love it. I see you on red carpet. So if we were to kind of sum up what exactly is your mission, what are you trying to build?
Well, actually, the Hood Motivator is a brand, and a lot of motivational speakers go off their name like RMDC, and that's fine. When I'm trying to be a household name like Michael Jordan, I'm trying to have the people wait in line for understanding. Like, I need to get this rhetoric. Why is this guy all over the place? And I don't want no ceiling on top of me. I want to be able to say, you know what? I can go speak to the
Yeah.
hood. I can go speak to the jail, but also I can speak to veterans, disabled veterans, but also I can go speak to collegiate Fortune 500 companies, but also I can speak to women. I can speak to kids. So that's my dynamic is everything. Just as long as I impact somebody sometime anywhere, that's about it. So that's me.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. So what is your one over? I know you got plenty of messages. If you were in a group, if you know, because I think the hardest area, because I dove straight into speaking for years, right? And I still do speaking, but I mean that was like my forte in 2020, and all of this other years I did it. But man, I think the hardest thing is connecting to audiences, right? So, like, I see you in high schools, man, which I think today, high schools and prisons, I'm not making a correlation there. But if you're a researcher, there's some correlations there. But I think those are two of the most impactful places you can go speak to people, and the most
Right.
difficult place you can go. Going to speak somewhere where everybody has a great salary, and everybody has first world problems, and everybody is going on vacation in June. The audience may not like what you say, but you ain't really worried about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So tell us as a speaker, man, and your mission. I know those places were hard for me when I know that the words that I had to come out of my mouth, I have to try to change something in this room. Because the people in this room, they don't have the first world problems that the other audience that I'm going to speak to next week have.
Right.
What does that responsibility feel like, and how do you approach that?
Every room I approach is the same. Is just trying to make that shift. Even if I just get to one person, because that one person is going to tell 100 more people. When I walk in there, I'm led, first of all, I'm led by God. So when I see my audience, sometimes my message changes because now I'm seeing the audience and how they're listening to the message, how they observing, how they take an impact. I just spoke at a Corrigan
Mhm.
Correctional Facility last Friday. And that was one of the hardest speeches. The second, because I spoke twice that day. The second gang unit was one of the hardest because there wasn't budging, no clapping, no nothing, no participation, no anything. It was just hard stone. But I will tell you, after the end of that speech, I had everybody standing up, raising their hand and clapping because the impact. Because I tell people all the time, as a speaker, you just got to be your authentic self. Don't try to be this person or that person or her or him. Be yourself, and they're gonna relate to them stories. And if they don't, they're gonna know somebody that's related, so they can go tell them a relatable message.
Yeah, man, that relatability is key, man. I went to a speaker school some years ago. Great school, shout out to them. They do great work, led by some professional high level speakers around the country in New Jersey. Great folks, man. They have a program that some of the best speakers in the world go to. And one thing they told me is every time you get on a stage, it's a performance. And then he said,
Yes.
also, the best actors in the world take something that they have dealt with to bring it out. Either you a good actor or you a mediocre actor. And he said, just to understand it, yes, it's a performance, but you have to be authentic to yourself. No matter if you're reading a script or have an idea, it has to come out of you. That's why I believe so much in the storytelling,
Mm.
right? I think storytelling is the most powerful genre we have today. I know you weave a lot of data, facts, real relatable things into storytelling. And I've seen that by doing some research and watching some of your stuff. So what are some of those rituals that, yes, it's one thing about being on a stage, but you got to go down the street to a Walmart, or you got to go down the street to the mall, you got to go to foot. So JayR, every day, how do you maintain that authentic? Because somebody can look and say, "Hey, Hood Motivator is a performance," and then it could be like,
Right.
"Oh man, I just saw him down at Walmart. That man had on a three-piece suit and was out there with his now later Gators on, and he was out there just chilling." And then I saw him the next day. He got his Long Beach hat on. Who is this dude? How do you maintain that authenticity by being so open to who you are?
Well, I tell people all the time, and just be who you are, right? So I got this message from my dad is when I get on every stage, it's an interview. And I take that for what it's worth. When I walk up on that stage, someone in that crowd is going to hire me. And also, too, I'd see a lot of speakers, like a lot of coaches, a lot of gym people, a lot of teachers that are not living the life that they want
Yeah,
somebody else to live, right? So I'm very big and I'm very against that. I call that hypocrite. So if I'm telling you to do something, best believe I done it twice over. I'm not trying to be the better version of it. All I'm trying to do is just make sure it's even, right? So make sure I wake up, I meditate, I pray, I work out.
yeah.
It's not easy because one mistake, somebody can say what you just said. Oh, I saw him and he's not the hood motivator. No, everywhere I go, I'm dragging that with me because when I get on that stage, I'm gonna let you know through all these trials and tribulations, through all these disabilities that I'm facing, I'm still in the gym, I'm still playing, I'm still being happy, I'm still smiling. Yes, I deal with stuff, but guess what? I'm taking every log and throwing that into that fireplace and keeping that fireplace lit.
I love that, man. I tell you, like you say, it's hard, man. And I'm sure you being a social media, like not social media, but like, a person who is very in the public, right? I know you get a lot of people who, that resonate with your brand, or people who want to try to ask you, how are you doing what you're doing, and all of these things. And, I always like to ask entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs who are starting to get that little, that, yeah, I call it I'm a country guy. So I grew up bonfire, and I just went camping for Christmas with my wife. And, I put a little lighter fluid on that wood, you get that little spark up. But, everybody no, they don't see the journey behind. So what do you tell an entrepreneur who hits you up, say, JayR, man, love what you're doing. I know you have opportunities for people to join your brand. Hey, I want to come and speak just like you. I want to come speak. What do you tell an entrepreneur?
Well, I tell them first, just, what I'm saying, make sure they understand what they're trying to do and really pray on it. If it's your gift, right? In society right now, we got a lot of people following everybody else.
Yeah.
God gave everybody a gift. And I have this speech called Activate Your Gift. I'm not asking you what you want to be when you grow up. I'm going to ask you, how can I activate your gift and pull that out of you? If that's not your gift and you just doing it for the likes and the girls and the cars, just to be seen, God is going to shut it down. But if you're doing it for the impact, come on, let me show you how to do it. You got a story. Tell your story. Don't be a rapper. Don't tell somebody else's story. Tell your story. Go through what you got to go through so you can glow. Because when you're glowing, people are gravitated towards you. And it takes 10,000 hours to make sure you understand that that is what you're trying to do. If you're a speaker, if you're a coach, if you play football, craft is 10,000 hours. Understand. And I definitely have put in them times without being paid and doing all them things. So I know God has me here
Oh
for a purpose.
man, speak it, man. I tell people all the time, part of my business is, we do a lot of facilitation of workshops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day, whatever it is, right? And I remember, when people ask me, they're like, hey, I did a little bit of speaking. Can I do a workshop? And I say, hey, you can do whatever you want. But let me tell you where my grind started. It started in 2005 when I taught my first college class. I'm like, they're like, you been teaching? Yeah, I've been teaching college for 21 years. So you're talking about those 10,000 hours. Man, the reps that I have to be able to stand in front of a classroom and keep someone's attention, I just didn't wake up one day and did that. I was horrible in 2005. I was terrible in 2006. I got a little bit better in 2007. And it took me a little bit to get to the point where my comfort level was, man, just give me 2 minute warning and I can go in here and do something for 4 hours. But that's not arrogance or confidence. That's just development and skill that you have developed, right? I'm
Right.
6'2".
Right.
I look like I'm in great shape, but you know what I can't do? I can't go across the street to that high school with 16-year-olds, and one of them wideouts will burn me soon as they're off the ball. He
Exactly.
gonna burn me off the ball. I have not exercised that skill in 35 years. So it ain't no way that I'm gonna go out there because I look the part and be able to
Right.
execute the way I need to execute, you know? So, no, I'm glad you said that 10,000 hours, man. I haven't heard that in a long time. And I'm glad you have that mentality, because I think you have a lot of power with your voice. And when we talk about, on this podcast, these honest conversations with people, you're in a lot of rooms. I'm in a lot of rooms, and I hear people constantly give people false, I ain't gonna say it's false hope, but if you're my friend, don't tell me, yeah, man, go out there and kill it. No, tell me, hey, bro, you need to buckle up, man. I see you out here always, you ain't got the discipline right now.
And that's what we fail to tell people because, like I said, society is afraid to say no. And I think no is yes. So sometimes it's like, I don't think that's your gift. Don't do that. And you might be mad at me, but you're gonna be more happier in the next 15, 20 years when you pivot. Right. So I had to pivot from doing security. Security, I loved it. And it was my tactics. I did it in the military. That was combat arms. But when I pivoted, my voice is what God gave me, my baritone, how I perform, how I get on that stage, how I gravitate, how I make sure I understand the crowd and the crowd understands me. I love it. It's like you said, it's a performance. It's my interview because guess what? If you don't like it, somebody else likes it. They're going to hire me to do something else for their event. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We call those, that school I talked about earlier, for all of you who are listening that are wanting aspiring speakers, that are people who facilitate or do anything. They call that stage side referrals. And, JR was
Yeah.
talking earlier about doing things for free. In this game, I don't care how big you get, you always got to understand the ROI and the value of why you're doing something. Even today, I might do something. I had an organization call me, and they were a part of the military organization, and they were a guard unit. They don't get a lot of money, right? And it was in a state that doesn't get a lot of money. And they were like, hey, can you come down here? We got 100 people. Can you speak to us? And I'm like, oh my. And they're like, all we got is your travel money, right? And I'm like, oh. my calendar. I have 4 businesses that I run, and I do all kinds of, and I travel and stuff. I'm like, they really don't have time for this. But they were like, I said, who's going to be in the room? And why I say that, because that's the most important questions you need to ask. Who's in the room? I could have said, you don't have no money, hang up. I said, who's in the room? They're like, oh, if you're familiar with, I'll just tell you, familiar with this, well, the Air National Guard, they have like 98 wings across the country
Yeah.
in the territories, individual basis. So they were like, oh, the leadership of all 98 wings are going to be in this room. I'm like, what? Okay. So now I just got to go in there and I got to perform and give these people like they pay me 100 grand. Because if I can do that level, if 10 of this 98 hire me,
There you go. It's worth it.
that was 3 years ago. I'm still getting hired from that same presentation.
Look at that. See?
You see, so I tell people all the time in this industry, yes, and you mentioned it earlier, you can come from a certain position. There's all kinds of people. I live in the DC area. I'm in groups. I do networking groups all the time. There are people who leave corporate jobs to become speakers and stuff in all these different worlds. Who you were is not necessarily the position where you are right now to start in this world, because no one may know you. So you can't show up all the time. Sometimes those free events become the most lucrative events you ever will do. So I appreciate you talking about that. I know you talk to a lot of people. I know you are out here communicating. What story? It could have been something you heard even way back. But what's a transformation story? You have one also. But what's a transformation story you witnessed or heard or someone told you back that still humbles you today? If you met somebody or you were like, man, like the comeback was real on that one.
Right. It was someone that was joining the military. They was told that they couldn't join that MOS, and they was homeless. They was staying in a hotel, and they was getting ready to give up. And I had spoke to them because I knew the recruiter, and said, "Let me pull some strings for you. Let me figure out what we can do." We end up getting a young lady in ROTC. Right now, she's a major right now in the military, and who's able to turn her algorithm of her life and say, "Hey, I think you're good at this. Let's point you in the right direction." So I was satisfied for that, but I go around and I make sure I touch a lot of people and make sure I try to put them in the right position and be positive, because it's easy to be negative. It's easy to be a turn off. It's easy to be, that ain't gonna happen. But I try to encourage everybody, every room I
Yeah.
go to, and let them know, well, keep your head up. It's not easy out here. It's a cold world. But if you keep striving one foot after the other, He will register your plan, and He will activate your gift so you could go do that.
Yeah, something I like to do. Yeah, I appreciate that in this podcast, man. Is I call that first, like that first kind of 70% of the podcast, kind of like setting that foundation to get to know who people are talking to, and this next segment is like it's like gaining trust and credibility. The same thing you do with your audience, right? So now you gain trust and credibility with the audience. People are more adapt to listen to what you tell them they need to do. Right. So let's get into some skills, man. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you have had your journey. Two parts of this. You have had your journey with resilience, and I know I've read something that you said a while back. It might have been months ago, where you talked about this journey of, I think it was 6 or 7 years that you have went from, correct me, associate's degree to now getting a doctorate degree.
Yes, since 2019 to now. Yes.
2019, man. That, first of all, that's phenomenal. But I would like to know, like, what sparked that whole journey for you? Because I kind of see a timeline here that you went through this transformational part of your life, and then something happened that made you pivot and actually go after this second thing. But you talked about this journey in mental health, and I would be remiss as someone who tries to be honest and open about mental health as much as I can. In that journey, what one thing, it might be more than one thing, what got you on the other side of the darkest days that you can remember?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of dark days, but I will tell you, I started my education. I just wanted to do it just to get some money. I was bored, and I started school, and I got my associates and bachelors in sports medicine at Kaiser. Then when I failed after entrepreneurship, I got my master's in business, because we don't know business. We know
Yeah.
hustling, and I wanted to take it back to the neighborhood in my hood and everybody that knew me and say, you know what? Everybody don't need a master's, but each one teach one. Let me help you. Let's understand, pivot. And when I was able to learn how to pivot and understand who I was, That's when it took off. That's when I started to believe in me. I was doing countless videos, just talking life into myself until all of a sudden a spark. My pastor was like, "Hey, why don't you put that on Instagram?" And I was like, "You sure?" He was like, "Yeah." Then it started to pick up traction. And all of a sudden, boom, it started to touch somebody else because it was like, "Oh, wow, I feel like that too. Oh, wow, okay, he can articulate. Oh, wow, that's my story too. Oh," and then it started to resonate with people. And all of a sudden, my dark days, my darkest days, for me almost committing suicide for the fourth time, it became the Hood Motivator. The brand came. Okay, let me embrace my superpower. Stop running from it. Let me understand. And my dad always told me, he's like, there's two things they can't take from you is your education and your military experience. Capitalize on that. So I started to capitalize on everything I did in combat, everything I did in the military, everything I did in education. And then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know no doctors that look like me that have Long Beach hat on, that Hood Motivator. So, okay, it's doctorate, Jay. Are you sure? It's hard. Are you sure? Okay, let's go get it. And now it creates value for me. Because when I step in these rooms, yeah, you judge me, but you forgot to look at the whole the spectrum. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. And it's easy for people to do. I tell people all the time, getting out of the military and being enlisted and walking into rooms where I was uncompromising about where I knew I belong in this room. Which is sometimes, I didn't see, like I said, I didn't necessarily see that. I didn't have examples of that, but I walked into the room like, because there's a lot of miseducation of what the military does and what you do in the military. And when I would walk into rooms in the early days of my separation, retirement, I'd be like, hey, I was, they'll ask me, what did I do? Oh, I was enlisted and I did this. And they'll look at me like, oh, first, before that, ask me if I flew planes. Not everybody in the Air Force fly planes. Actually, very minority of the Air Force fly plane, small section. You got a whole other 98% of the people in the Air Force that don't fly planes. So I love the fact that that you are an authentic voice out here, man. Like I say, some of us, I don't say us, but some people believe that they have to reinvent themselves into something that they're not, right? Just by getting on this podcast today, like, hey, I'm in my home office. I got a T-shirt on that says, golf and hip hop. Only reason I threw this jacket on over it, I was like, man, because I was eating Chick-fil-A earlier with my wife, and I got some sauce on it. But it wasn't. I don't have any conscious effort to come up here and go, I got a closet full of nice clothes. But I was like, oh, well, let me go in here and put this on to show up as this. I'm showing up the same way I showed up when I got up at 5 o'clock this morning and took a shower and came put my clothes on. They ain't no different. All right. So no, but I love that, man. And so what would you tell someone right now who's going through something and they're listening or seeing this in the future, or they're listening to this right now? What would you tell that person if that person is like, man, that sounds cool. Yeah, you got a cool story. You were able to overcome it, but that's not for me. Because a lot of us put barriers in our head and go, yeah, that's cool. You did it. But you don't understand. I don't have that capability to go read and go to school. And man, I don't have that capability. So what would you tell somebody like that?
I would tell them, look at Mother Nature. Cows and bisons, their DNA are made up to go through storms, but there's two differences. The cow, when the storm comes, the hurricane, the tornadoes, all that, the cow runs away from it. So the storm always follows them. But the bison runs into the middle of the storm. And when he gets to the other side, he shakes it off and the storm has already passed. So now I ask any entrepreneur, anybody that's going through trials or tribulation, which one are you going to be? They're both going to survive, but how long do you want to survive? Because when I was surviving, going through all this stuff, I thought nobody
Mm.
cared about me. I was the cow, but I turned it to the bison. I turned right back around and pivoted and went right back into that storm. And when I came out, I became the hood motivator now. And I don't care if people like it or not. This is an $8 billion industry. I just want 0.1% of it, of life coach and a motivational speaker, because I am him. I'm not trying to be nobody else. I give props to Eric Thomas, Zig Ziglar, Icky John, all them guys, but I'm JayR McIntyre. This is what I'm trying to do. This is who I am. And I know I'm the new voice of the generation.
No, I appreciate that, man. Because I'm telling you, man, if you don't hear it often enough, and I like to give people, it's this whole, we're talking about giving people their flowers. No, I like giving people the respect that's due to them. And I will tell you, the level of confidence you have is what's required of men, especially black men. I'll just say it, right? Because if you have doubt in yourself, then everybody else around you is going to doubt you. Surrounding yourself. I remember 68-year-old man I met here in DC was probably one of the most transformational people in 2021 I met. I was doing all the things at a level that I thought was man, I'm out here grinding. I'm out here about the, but I didn't have your mentality in 2021. I was like, oh, man, somebody pay me this, I'm good. Somebody pay me that, I'm good. I wasn't worried. And he stopped me one day, and we were in a coaching class, and he asked me about my business and stuff, and thought I was killing it, right? And he was like, so is it a business or is it a hobby? And then he said, oh, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's either or. But he said, I got another question for you. What's your plan to make your first million? And I said, huh? What? Psh, not thinking about that. My mom ain't never made six figures in her life. I don't come from that, right? And I was in the military, a million. And he said, no, a million ain't nothing. You just got to have a plan to make a million, because once you have a system and a plan, a million, 10 million, 20 million, it's all the same. And I was like, man, it just changed the way I approach my own business, because I was approaching myself to be the big fish in a little pond. I was like, okay, I'm kind of on top in this military space, so maybe that's good enough. And I'm like, the military space accounts for a fraction of a percent of my business. Like you said, how do I become a big fish in the whole ocean, not the pond? Like, how do I at least not become I don't need to become a blue whale. I need to just become a something that ain't nobody trying to mess with, and they notice so I pass by.
Exactly. Exactly. That's how I am. I know there's like I want to create a species. I know there's going to be a bunch of other hood motivators that's going to come after me. I just want them to mount up and say, "It's be comfortable in their own skin. You can do what you got to do. You can walk in the room confident, be educated with your hat forward and your jeans on, and say, hey, you know what? I demand to be here.' You know what I'm saying? And that's what I do. In every room I walk in, I'm confident, and my articulation and how I handle my rhetoric is just it matches the same person on the other side. It's the same thing.
Yeah, man. I'll close this little segment out with this one thing. And so when I got out, and you were in the army, so I was an E9 in the Air Force, right? Command chief, whatever.
Yeah.
So I call it the khaki pants crew, right? So everybody has khaki pants and a polo. When you're a high ranking officer or a high ranking enlisted, for you, every event that you go to in the military, everybody got on some khaki pants. And I ain't so please, military folks, don't come for me, please. But if you do, you got khaki pants on in the closet with a polo. I'm not saying something that I didn't do. I just don't own khakis anymore. I haven't worn a pair of khakis in 6 years. But what I'm saying, when I got out of the military, man, the first thing I did is I went to the things that I like. So I remember having to speak to a room, man, it was televised room of 4 or 5 thousand people, man, and it was going live streamed and all of this stuff. And it was all military. It is all military in the room, all Air Force. And matter of fact, I was only out of the military maybe 18 months. And most of the people sitting in the front row are leaders that I used to work with. Like
Right.
I
Wow.
would be sitting there. I was in one of the senior leader positions, right? But I walked on stage, man, and the proudest picture I have, I walked on stage, I had on a nice blue, slim cut suit and some chucks, bro, some red chucks. And they weren't ready. And I was real comfortable. And I can see, and I did a fireside, I was interviewing some people, and I had my chucks and I had some socks on with some whatever crazy design. And I can see the people I can see the confused look, right? Because it was against norms, right? It was like,
Right.
hey,
Mhm.
you're supposed to be in this box. And I tell you, man, I got so much conversation from the younger generation that was in that audience the next 2 days that saw me, because I had three pair every day. I had a different color Chucks on with a what is it? And I had so much conversation off of a pair of shoes. The next time I got introduced, like 2 days later, to speak at a smaller group, the guy who introduced me, he ad libbed. He said, "And I want to introduce the only person I know that was a retired chief who got the balls to wear Chucks." But it was one of those things where you can be relatable and you can also give people permission. And I think what you do very well is you relate to a certain segment of people, right? But what you do for everyone is you give everyone permission.
That's
And
it.
and
Yeah.
that permission is powerful, brother. And I mean, when you walk into the room and I'm reading your bio and I'm listening to you speak, and I know where you came from and all the things you have done, it's hard to judge you then. It makes me want to like take my tie off or something. Like, all right, well, let me take this tie off and loosen my shirt up and take my jacket off and roll a sleeve up, because it's okay. So I
Right.
appreciate that long
Exactly.
explanation too, man. Thank you for giving people permission. Because I'm gonna be honest, this is an honest podcast, JayR. When I first saw you on social media, I was like, like most people do. Like, probably like, what's going on here? And the difference is I invested the time. I look at your stuff every day. Like I invested the time to go, what's this brother trying to do? And I said, okay, I got it. I didn't scroll past one time, get a reaction. So all of you out there, you need to go look up Hood Motivator cartoon, Hood Motivator, speaking all of this stuff, because you're going to get something from it regardless of who you are. So I shout out to you. Like going into us finishing this up in a few minutes, I want to talk about your books, what you got going on, where we can find you. Like, what are some things, man, that are in the pipeline for you? Like, man, let us know, man. Brag on yourself, man. We call this the braggadocious minute.
Definitely. God has been good. This year has opened up with a bang. I'm totally booked all the way up until April, but right now I'm getting ready for USF. I'm speaking at USF. I'm speaking at this boss's ball. I'm speaking at another panel talk in Orlando. I got a TED talk coming up in October. I got a few gigs in Africa that's coming up. Dubai hit me up. I have my book From the Block to the Board that's on Amazon. Another book coming out in February. A Good Heart Gonna Pay Bills, that tells about the story of my company that was a better known company that crumbled during COVID. And it just tells about how I was able to pivot to what I'm doing now. I graduate this year with my doctorate in business, global business. I'm a life coach. I got signed to Los Angeles Tribune podcasting. I'm also a podcaster. And I travel the world just speaking and telling my message and getting into every room. I don't like to be like, oh, what's your niche? Everything is my niche. I do it all. I just happen to dress like this. And if you want to find me, go to my website, www.Tha Hood Motivator. Replace the A with the 8 because it's unique. It's like this right here. So the Motivator. So
So
thank
where
you
do we
so
get that merch from, man?
it's on the website too. So you can start ordering t-shirts. It says your energy introduces you before you even walk in the room.
All right, Unbounded podcast listeners, I'm going to tell you this, and we're going to grow this platform. I'm going to tell you this. When this comes out in February, I think, when this episode comes out and you hear this episode, if you're the first person to email me at todd.simmons at courageous lead, or hit us up on the Unbounded podcast links and stuff that you'll see, I'll buy you a t-shirt. I'll buy you a hoodie. I'm going to up the game. I'm going to buy you a hoodie. I'm going to buy you a Hood Motivator hoodie. So just hit me up. I'll get you a hoodie right in time for, still hoodie season. I got about 7 of them up there, so I'm wearing them. So, so man, I tell you what, man, I always like to end with, give us one word, that if one word you live by, what's that one word you live by?
Well, before I give that one word also too, I'm coming to you in DC in February to speak at your event, and I'm grateful for that, and I appreciate you. I
No, I
can't wait for that.
appreciate it.
And the word I would like to give is the faith of a mustard seed. You know what I'm saying? God understands that you have to believe in yourself. You have to understand what you're doing, and that mustard seed is so small. So that means you got to have a faith of that and understand that faith is a substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So you got to dream big, dream hard, and get out there, get off the porch, and stop telling somebody your dream and just go do it.
No, I appreciate that, man. And I'll tell you, audience, if you go back, following me for some time in 2020, I used to do a short thing called Courageous Minute that used to be about 2 or 3 minutes that we may pick back up. We're bustling this year in a couple of different things we're doing, but it should be 2 or 3 minutes of a good word. And I know, JayR does a lot of those things during the day, and he gives short spurts. But when we want to extend the version of the podcast, what you're listening to now, what we didn't want to do is hold you to just an hour and a half and just hostage, right? Where does the conversation go? How can you meet people out here? And how can I share audiences? How can you meet people that you have not met? I'm sure people in my audience are going to go, man, you interviewed JayR, the Hood Motivator? Absolutely. And listen to why I interviewed him. Listen to our
Right.
conversation. Listen to who we are as human beings and people. You might learn something about both of us, So I would tell you, JayR, it was an honor to have you on one of our first 5 episodes, to be honest with you, that we are recording. And, I was very deliberate about this over Christmas when I was writing names down when my daughter was overlooking me and stuff. And I was like, she's like, what are you trying to achieve? I'm like, and I looked at her, she's 24, and I said, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm done achieving. I'm done achieving and pleasing, right? I do things of
Yes.
purpose now.
Yes.
I said the purpose that I'm doing this for is I want to have great conversation because it fills me up. And I want to have good conversations because I know people that I can't get to physically anymore need to hear my voice and hear the voice of people like me, have great stories. And if that's only 40 people, then that's 40 people. If that's 2,000, if that's 40,000, and what it is, I said, I'm not trying to achieve a multi-million dollar podcast. If that's what I wanted to do, I would put the resources I have into renting a studio and doing all of that stuff. This is a start and a spark. And that's what I told her. I want to get conversations out, and we're going to do it professionally, and we're going to do it with great producers who's going to make us all sound and great after this. But the purpose is, how do I amplify my voice and amplify the people around me that are great human beings to amplify their voice? So all of you are listening, that's all this is about. And I hope you got that from this episode with JayR, soon to be Dr. McIntyre, which is an awesome accomplishment. I commend you for that, brother. Somebody who's been getting their education, been a part of education for over 26 years, teaching and getting their degrees. I took one PhD class 11, 12 years ago. I have a double master's, and I went to go and I said, you know what? I'm just not about that life. So, and I said I was always going to go back and do it. But, man, I'm just at the point in my life now where I'm very secure. And like I said, I'm done achieving and chasing. I'm living life of purpose. And I know the purpose that you're doing, pursuing your degree, is very purpose driven. I just look at it for me at this point, man. I just clap loud for people like you who are willing to go out there and continue to educate yourself, continue to drive, continue to be an example. So, JayR, Dr. McIntyre, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I really cannot wait to send this episode to my daughter. I cannot wait to send this episode to my hood, right? I'm very connected. February 6th, y'all. And right behind me, if you can see here, that's the everyone who knows my story and ever read my book, Why Not Me, know where I came from and know how I grew up. And in 2021, up here in the right corner, if you can see, the mayor gave me the key to the city from the city I'm from, right? And February 6th is always Todd Simmons Day in Hardeeville, South Carolina. So upcoming 6th February, I always look at that day and I smile. I'm like, when I got that award and the mayor gave me that award, I can only be myself in that room in City Hall. And it's been almost 30 years since the last time I lived there at that point. And my speech went like this, and I'll drop the mic and end on this. I so appreciate this. My mom, my aunts, all my family members is in the audience. I really appreciate this opportunity to represent my city. To come to think of it, the last time I was in this building, I was in handcuffs. You know, last time I was in this building, it was 1993, and I was in handcuffs. Now you're giving me the key to the city. The mayor didn't know what to do with that, but that goes back to your message of the Hood Motivator. I can start somewhere in the same building and end in the same building in a different spot. Perseverance, brother. So thank you again, man. I love this conversation. This has uplifted me on a Tuesday. You have no idea. These type of things are part of my resilience. It's part of what makes me happy in life and what drives my purpose. So thanks again, JayR. We'll see you out and about around the world. I'm gonna try to catch up with you, but I know that's a hard task because you run too fast. So everybody on Unbounded podcast, follow us. If this resonated with you, share it. If it didn't, let us know, and we'll talk to you one-on-one. How about that? But everyone else, please have a safe time out there in 2026, and we look forward to you on the Unbounded podcast in the future.